James Earl Ray. James Earl Ray, the fugitive who assassinated civil rights leader Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on April 4, 1968, in Memphis, Tennessee. Ray, an escaped convict at the time, fired a single rifle shot from a boarding house window across from the Lorraine Motel, striking King on the balcony. King's death triggered nationwide outrage, riots in more than 100 cities, and an urgent, high-profile manhunt. Ray fled the scene immediately, abandoning the rifle with his fingerprints on it. Using multiple aliases and forged documents, he traveled through Canada, obtained a passport under a false identity, and managed to reach London, where he attempted to secure passage to Rhodesia, then under white minority rule. His escape demonstrated careful preparation. Ray had studied King's movements, rehearsed his shot, and arranged international contacts in advance. He was placed on the FBI 10 Most Wanted Fugitives list within days of the killing. 2 months later, in June 1968, authorities tracked him to London's Heathrow Airport after he tried to board a plane to Brussels on a false Canadian passport. He was extradited to the United States, where he pleaded guilty in 1969 to avoid the death penalty and received a 99-year prison sentence. Though Ray later recanted his confession and claimed involvement in a larger conspiracy, extensive investigations, including a House Select Committee review, found no evidence supporting his claims. He spent the rest of his life in prison, dying in 1998. His case cemented the FBI 10 Most Wanted list as an essential tool for pursuing fugitives whose crimes had nationwide and international impact. Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy, one of America's most infamous serial killers, whose string of murders in the 1970s horrified the nation and tested the FBI fugitive hunting capabilities. Bundy was linked to the disappearances and murders of dozens of young women across multiple states, luring victims by feigning injury or impersonating authority figures. His charm and intelligence masked his violent predation, making him especially dangerous. After being arrested in 1975 for kidnapping, Bundy escaped custody twice, first from a courthouse in Colorado in 1977, and later from a jail cell, sawing through the ceiling and slipping away. Following his second escape, he traveled undetected to Florida, where he carried out some of his most brutal crimes, including the Chi Omega sorority house attacks in January 1978, killing 2 women and injuring others, and the abduction and murder of 12-year-old Kimberly Leach. During this period, Bundy was added to the FBI 10 Most Wanted Fugitives list, reflecting the urgency of capturing a killer capable of crossing state lines and continuing his spree. His notoriety made him one of the most widely recognized fugitives in America, yet he still managed to evade law enforcement through disguises and constant movement. His run ended in February 1978, when he was stopped by police in Pensacola, Florida, driving a stolen car. Bundy was convicted of multiple murders, sentenced to death, and executed in Florida's electric chair in 1989. His time on the Most Wanted list highlighted the difficulty of capturing mobile, intelligent killers before modern technology like DNA databases and advanced interstate coordination were widely in use. Osama bin Laden. Osama bin Laden, the mastermind of the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks and the most notorious fugitive ever to appear on the FBI Most Wanted list. As the founder of Al-Qaeda, bin Laden directed a global network responsible for multiple large-scale attacks, but none more devastating than the coordinated hijackings on September 11th that killed nearly 3,000 people and reshaped U.S. foreign and domestic policy. Bin Laden had been on the FBI radar since the late 1990s, wanted for his role in the 1998 bombings of U.S. embassies in Kenya and Tanzania that killed over 200 people. He was placed on the 10 Most Wanted list in 1999, but after 9/11, he became the top priority for U.S. intelligence and law enforcement worldwide. Despite his global notoriety, bin Laden managed to evade capture for nearly a decade, using mountainous terrain, loyal networks in Afghanistan and Pakistan, and careful security practices to stay hidden. The hunt for him involved unprecedented resources, including military operations, intelligence gathering, and international pressure. Rumors of his whereabouts circulated constantly, ranging from remote caves to urban safe houses, but his exact location remained elusive. The FBI continued to offer a $25 million reward for information leading to his capture, one of the largest in history. On May 2, 2011, a U.S. Navy SEAL team located and killed bin Laden in a compound in Abbottabad, Pakistan. His death marked the end of one of the longest and most intense manhunts in modern history. Bin Laden's case underscored how the FBI most wanted list had expanded from focusing on domestic fugitives to including figures whose crimes reshaped international security and global counterterrorism. Ramzi Yousef, the terrorist behind the 1993 World Trade Center bombing, which killed 6 people and injured more than 1,000. Yousef entered the United States under a false identity and, with accomplices, constructed a massive truck bomb made of urea nitrate and hydrogen gas cylinders. On February 26, 1993, they drove the truck into the underground garage of the North Tower and detonated it, aiming to topple one tower into the other. The plot failed to collapse the buildings but exposed major vulnerabilities in U.S. security. Yousef fled the country the night of the attack, traveling internationally using forged passports and disguises. His escape triggered one of the most complex global manhunts of the 1990s. He became a central figure on the FBI 10 Most Wanted Fugitives list, wanted not only for the New York bombing but also for plots abroad, including attempts to assassinate Pope John Paul II and to bomb U.S. airliners in the so-called Bojinka plot. The FBI and other agencies tracked his movements across multiple countries, piecing together financial trails, intercepted communications, and tips from informants. In 1995, they located him in Islamabad, Pakistan, staying at a guest house linked to al-Qaeda contacts. He was arrested in a joint U.S.-Pakistani operation and extradited to the United States. Convicted of terrorism charges, Yousef was sentenced to life in prison without parole and placed in the federal Supermax facility in Colorado. James Whitey Bulger, the Boston mob boss whose life of organized crime, murder, and corruption made him one of the most infamous figures ever placed on the FBI 10 Most Wanted list. Bulger rose to power in Boston's underworld as leader of the Winter Hill Gang, controlling gambling, drug trafficking, extortion, and loan sharking. He was also an FBI informant, feeding the Bureau information on rival gangs, which gave him protection and allowed his empire to flourish. Despite that cooperation, Bulger was implicated in at least 19 murders. Many victims were rivals, informants, or associates he feared might betray him. His reputation was built on brutality, strangulations, shootings, and even bodies buried in basements. By the mid-1990s, with indictments piling up, he fled Boston in 1994 just before federal agents came to arrest him. His FBI contacts had tipped him off, deepening the scandal around his years as an informant. Bulger remained on the run for 16 years, becoming one of the FBI's longest hunted fugitives. He was placed on the most wanted list in 1999 with a $2 million reward, the largest ever at that time. For years, he and his longtime partner Catherine Gregg evaded capture by moving between apartments and living under assumed identities. He was finally arrested in 2011 in Santa Monica, California, after a public tip alerted authorities to his location. In 2013, Bulger stood trial on 32 counts, including racketeering and murder. He was convicted and sentenced to 2 consecutive life terms plus 5 years. In 2018, while serving time at a federal prison in West Virginia, he was beaten to death by fellow inmates, a violent end to a violent life. Bulger's case revealed the dangerous overlap of law enforcement and organized crime, where corruption allowed one of America's most ruthless mobsters to thrive for decades. Eric Robert Rudolph, the domestic terrorist known as the Olympic Park bomber. Rudolph gained infamy for a string of bombings in the 1990s that targeted public gatherings and facilities, leaving death, injury, and fear in their wake. His most notorious attack came during the 1996 Summer Olympics in Atlanta, where he planted a pipe bomb in Centennial Olympic Park. The explosion killed one person directly, caused a heart attack death in the chaos, and injured more than 100 others. Rudolph's stated motive was to embarrass the U.S. government on an international stage and protest what he considered its immorality. Rudolph continued his bombing campaign for years. In 1997, he attacked an abortion clinic in Atlanta, killing a security guard and maiming a nurse. That same year, he bombed a lesbian nightclub in the city, injuring 5 patrons. In 1998, he struck another abortion clinic in Birmingham, Alabama, where a police officer was killed. These attacks reflected his extremist anti-abortion and anti-LGBTQ ideology. After the Birmingham bombing, Rudolph became the focus of one of the largest federal manhunts in U.S. history. He vanished into the wilderness of western North Carolina, where he survived for 5 years by living in caves, stealing food, and relying on outdoor survival skills. He became a near-mythical figure, with rumors spreading about locals protecting him. In 2003, Rudolph was finally captured when a rookie police officer spotted him scavenging for food behind a grocery store in Murphy, North Carolina. He later confessed to all 4 bombings and was sentenced to multiple life terms without parole. Rudolph's case underscored how a single extremist could inflict mass casualties and evade capture for years, turning parts of the country into his personal hiding ground. Victor Gerena. Victor Manuel Gerena, one of the most successful armored car robbers in U.S. history and one of the longest-running fugitives on the FBI Most Wanted list. In 1983, Gerena carried out a meticulously planned robbery in West Hartford, Connecticut, stealing $7 million from a Wells Fargo armored car facility. At the time, it was the largest cash heist in American history. Gerena was a Wells Fargo guard himself, which gave him inside access. On the night of the robbery, he overpowered 2 fellow guards by tying them up, handcuffing them, and injecting them with a sedative to keep them quiet. He then loaded the millions into a van and disappeared. Investigators quickly discovered that Gerena was not acting alone. He was linked to a Puerto Rican militant group called Los Macheteros, which sought independence for Puerto Rico through violent means. The group allegedly helped him escape and laundered the stolen money. For decades, Gerena managed to evade capture. The FBI pursued leads across the Caribbean, Central America, and Cuba, but each trail went cold. He was placed on the 10 Most Wanted list in 1984, and despite countless tips, he remained at large. Investigators long suspected that he found refuge in Cuba under government protection, though authorities there denied harboring him. Gerena's case is notable not only for the sheer scale of the robbery, but also for the political dimensions surrounding it. The stolen money was believed to have supported militant operations, giving the crime an ideological layer beyond personal gain. His name stayed on the Most Wanted list for over 30 years, making him one of the list's most enduring fugitives before he was finally removed in 2016, due to the length of time passed. Rafael Quintero. Rafael Caro Quintero, the Mexican drug lord whose rise in the Guadalajara cartel and role in the 1985 murder of a U.S. DEA agent made him one of the FBI's most wanted fugitives. Quintero began his criminal career by cultivating and trafficking marijuana on a massive scale, building an empire worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Alongside Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo and Ernesto Fonseca Carrillo, he helped establish one of Mexico's first major cartels, which controlled drug routes into the United States during the 1980s. Quintero's most infamous act was his involvement in the kidnapping, torture, and murder of DEA agent Enrique "Kiki" Camarena in 1985. Camarena had been investigating cartel operations in Mexico, and his death sent shockwaves through U.S.-Mexico relations. His body was discovered with signs of brutal torture, and Quintero was quickly identified as one of the masterminds. The incident marked a turning point in the U.S. war on drugs, intensifying efforts to target Mexican cartels. Mexican authorities arrested Quintero later that year, and he was sentenced to 40 years in prison. But in 2013, after serving only 28 years, a Mexican court unexpectedly released him on a legal technicality, overturning his conviction. The release outraged U.S. officials, and the FBI swiftly placed him on its 10 Most Wanted list, offering a reward of $20 million for his capture, one of the highest bounties ever offered. For nearly a decade, Quintero evaded recapture, allegedly continuing to play a role in drug trafficking while hiding in remote areas of Mexico. His luck finally ran out in July 2022, when Mexican Marines, aided by a DEA-trained dog, located him in the mountains of Sinaloa. His arrest closed one of the longest and most embarrassing chapters in the history of U.S.-Mexico anti-drug efforts. Thanks for watching. If you want more, check out the next video right here for another unbelievable true crime story.